Hello, my next gen millionaires. What is happening this week? Um, what is happening this week? It's always a good question. Week to week, things change, and you know, it's hard to say what might happen. But hopefully, you're having a good week. Hopefully, you're rocking it. Hopefully, you're not allowing your money stories, your emotions, dictate how you're feeling, and really where you're headed to get money. Bring the mic closer here. Yeah. So I just want to pop in today from a weekly live stream and talk a little bit about accomplishment. I want to talk about the attitude of accomplishment. I saw some people posting in the group this week, uh, different like the newsletter I sent out from last week was like, hey, go retake the attitudes of money little assessment and see where you're at. Right? It's always good to kind of get a point in time where you're at to see if you're progressing and see if they change, see how things change over time. And if we don't do the work, then it's hard to see the change, right? It's just like our bodies. If we're working out, or if we're eating differently, right, we see change over time. You see all the health coaches always have you take pictures before and after those, before pictures, so you can show physically the change that's happening. So the attitudes of money, little questionnaire assessment is a great way to do that. Because if not, it's hard to quantify like where we're at and what's happening. So all that being said, if you haven't done it, go take it. If you haven't taken it in a while, go take it again. It's just a PDF download. You just score yourself. And honesty is the best policy. So just be as honest with yourself and you can figure out where it's at. As you dive deeper in, you might think, oh, hey, listen, I actually need the attitude more now because I understand it more, or because I've, done kind of level 1, 2, and 3. So now we're like level 4 or level 10. Whatever you want to label your levels. I don't have levels in there, so it's whatever you want. Right? But our minds work this way. So I want to pop in here this week, and I want to talk about the attitude of accomplishment. Oh, this poor attitude is one that people put off, don't really recognize, one that people tend to diminish, like the power of really looking at our accomplishments. And it's sad because we've been taught that we shouldn't, as Debbie likes to say, toot your own horn, right? For those that don't know, who are just watching this, Debbie is my wife. But we don't. We're taught to like just kind of hide, and for the most part, as we grow up in life, a lot of us do that. Some people are like, no, they're my own rules, and I'm going to celebrate how I want to, and I celebrate those people. I myself was not one of those people always to be like, hey, look at what I did. It feels so, in the world of lots of things, it feels so egotistical to be like, oh, well, look what I am doing. But is it? I would say no, but we've been taught that it is, and that's the problem. So as we're sitting here, as we look back on the week, as we go about our work lives, our personal lives, start taking mental note. I mean, that'd be like kind of step one. Start taking mental note of all the things you're accomplishing. It doesn't matter how big or little. Accomplishment really has no time boundary or time current. Like time's not a currency for accomplishment. It'd be like you have to accomplish something that takes you 1 hour, or it's not worth celebrating. That's stupid. If we go do something and it's like a 5-minute thing, we're like, oh, that was pretty easy. Celebrate it. It's still an accomplishment, If it's something easy to do that you do in your job, you're like, well, it's not that big of a deal. We tend to start putting those things off. But if you rewind a few years, was it as easy to do as it is today? Well, no, right? Think about that. With time, you build experience and knowledge, and as that goes on, then that becomes easier. But what's important is it does not diminish the amount of accomplishment energy we should be looking at. Right? There's this accomplishment piece. When I look back at my career, in IT, I did a lot of things, a lot of that, right? Where I'd spend hours and hours and hours trying to solve a problem the first time. And I'd be so happy. I'd like jump. I'm like, yes, I made it. I got it. Yeah, this is so awesome. The next time when that came up, it wasn't a challenge anymore. I just blew past it, but I didn't celebrate the same way. But I look back at that now and I'm like, I should have, like every time, and we could spend our whole time celebrating. That's awesome. But look at what we've learned. right? And that's the important thing. When we come up against things with money, right, it's difficult at first. When most people meet me, the first thing, I have them do is talk to their money. And people are like, "Oh, that's so weird, Joe. I don't know." And they sit here and they stare at it, and like I'm staring at my money on my desk here, and they stare at it and like, oh, I don't know what to say, right? And they got their pen and they're like maybe a notepad, and they're like just like sitting there with we'll just put it like a blank page here, and they just sit there and like, oh, I don't know what to do. And they just stare and stare, and not sure what to write. Do it for a week, do it for 2 weeks, do it for 3 months. And pretty soon they're like, okay, money, what are we doing today? And it's just like starts coming and it's telling you all this stuff, and you're just writing and journaling, and it starts to become very easy. Right? We should be celebrating those same accomplishments. Because if we don't, then we're discounting where we've been and where we're going. Accomplishment is important because it tells us to say, hey, listen, we can champion ourselves. We can be happy for what we're doing. Now, if other people want to cheer us on, that's a bonus. But it should be us. Like, if we can't cheer ourselves on, then why should anybody else? I just want you to sit with that. If we can't cheer ourselves on, why should anybody else? It's important for us to do it. Sometimes it takes us saying something cool happen for people to congratulate us. On the flip side of that, too, people don't know what happens every day in our lives all the time. If we close a client, make more money, help somebody solve a problem, that person's not there. Like the people on the other side of like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all these social media platforms aren't there watching our every move. So sometimes we got to say, hey, guess what? I had this awesome win today. And then let people cheer with us. Because I promise you, they want to. There's a crazy amount of physical things that happen within us too when we start to celebrate ourselves. Our bodies start to respond to that positive energy in a way that we otherwise wouldn't have. The same goes for the negative. When we get down on ourselves, it starts to break us down. So think about that. If we cheered ourselves on every day, how much more healthy would our bodies feel? Those aches and pains we're feeling, would they start to go away because we're starting to sit up straighter, we're starting to sit taller, we're like, yeah, I can do this. This is so awesome. For those who don't move much, maybe a small little dance party. Because, yeah, I just like closed this sale, or I just figured out this problem. Now I'm going to turn on some cool music, and I'm going to just do a 3-minute dance. You could try that. If you haven't danced for a while in a bit, to move your body consistently for 3 to 4 minutes, sometimes it's not the easiest. You run out of moves. You're like, keep doing the same thing over and over. But celebrate. Because, again, if we're not celebrating, who's going to do it? So one little piece I want to share with you, a quick story real fast. So I have not the best workout routine. In some cases, I don't have a workout routine. And this year is all about getting my body in better shape, the shape I want it to be in, right? Which is healthy, moving. I still play hockey, and a lot of people know that. But that's like the only movement I get. And for whatever reasons, my body's gotten older. I remember this happened a few years ago and continues to plague me because I don't take care of it, right? That's my ownership of this issue. But I went to sleep one night and I woke up the next morning and I couldn't lift my shoulder above like right here. Like that's as far, and then it hurt. And I'm like, oh, did I like injure it playing and I didn't realize? Did I do something else? Did I tear my rotator cuff or something? And I went to the doctor and he's like, well, here's the thing. Like, if it's an injury, if it's rotator cuff, at your age, it's not, we do change the terminology, right? And it becomes like I think a tear or something like that. I don't know. Because my age, I'm old, right? When it comes to the body, I don't feel old, but when it comes to my body, they classify me differently. But what it ended up being is, thank heavens, not my rotator cuff got messed up, but what's wrong is it's called impingement syndrome, where the shoulder gets pulled in a funny way because certain muscle groups are not helping the way they need to, and some aren't strong enough. So I went to physical therapy for a while, and I have this whole thing, and every now and again it starts to come up again, right? It starts to remind me that I need to move my body. So this very thing happened today, and I'm like, man, I went to lift for something. I'm like, oh, I can't, like, all this pain shot through my shoulder, and I'm like, why? Why don't I do that? So I'm just like, I should go do my exercises. Now, here's where I want to wrap it together, because my exercises don't take me like an hour to do. They don't take me a half hour to do. I have some simple exercises that take me like 10 to 15 minutes. The funny thing is when I do them, my shoulder, like just that, like this morning I couldn't lift my shoulder above this, right? And now I can lift it up like this with no pain. And it only took like 10 minutes. My body knows that when I take care of it, when I champion it, when I celebrate what's going on, I'm like, oh, that's not working well. I'm going to go take care of that piece. And then when I celebrate it, it'll be like, yeah, I got this done. Right? It doesn't take a lot of time to see results. Okay, so there's lots of applications for that, but I want you to really think about this for how this really ties in with the attitude of accomplishment. Again, you don't have to go solve the world's problems in an afternoon to feel like you've accomplished something. If your inbox is full and you like made it halfway through, be like, yeah, look what I did. Yes. And like, just celebrate it. Because the more we celebrate, the more confidence we build within ourselves, right? And it bleeds kind of over into the attitude of confidence. But the more we celebrate, the more we see ourselves. Like I say, we start sitting up taller. We start being stronger in our messaging. We start, asking for sales that maybe we wouldn't have before. We start doing all these things. We start reaching out to people to form relationships that we might not have before. So all that's important. And when we do that, the accomplishment, the celebrating ourselves will lead to more money every time. And here's the challenge. If you don't believe me, just try it. And then post below in the comments what the results were. Because I know we don't celebrate ourselves enough. We always hold back. We're always like, oh, maybe I'm being too much. Maybe I'm not, being humble enough. And we could talk about that. I kind of roll my eyes when people say that. We could talk about that for a good long conversation. But what's most important is celebrate yourself. So what I want you to do this week is find a way to celebrate yourself every single day. Okay? If you want to do it multiple times a day, that's a bonus for you. But try to celebrate yourselves every single day. Because I know when you do, it's going to be helpful. And when you do it, you're going to find more money. It'll show up. People see it. They're like, wow, that's really cool what you're doing. Right? I want more of that. So that's the challenge for this week. Lean into it. If you got questions, post them in the comments below. Again, if you're trying to figure out which attitude is best to work on now, could be different than 3 months ago. Go look at the Attitudes of Money download again and reassess yourself. It's always good to look at where we're at. And then cheer on and that accomplishment energy when you figure out that, hey, listen, it's not as bad as it was last time. Or listen, I'm awesome with this attitude. Now it's time for a new attitude. Because the little things matter. And if we can celebrate ourselves in the little things, then when the big things come, it'll be that much easier. But the little things are always the hardest to celebrate. So go celebrate yourselves. Let me know so I can cheer you on. And have fun with it. Till next week. See ya.